Welcome back. I'm Tim Erlander with the Republican Roundtable with you once again. And with me again is my co-host, Marc Sullivan. Marc, it's good to see you, as always.
Good to be back, Tim.
And we have a lovely lady for a guest. She is Barb Sutter, who is candidate for state legislature in District 49B.
I am that.
And Barb, can you speak up right in there?
Yes, I will.
All right. Well, I want to make sure everybody hears you. Where is 49B? What part of the world is this in?
49B, without having my prop with me, I frequently hold up a little map showing people it is West Bloomington.
Mm-hmm.
I have 4 precincts, or I would have 4 precincts in South Edina. And then as you head a little west of that, I have 1 very large Eden Prairie precinct and 2 Minnetonka.
So you're spread over
Yes.
4 suburbs.
Yes.
4 cities, suburbs.
Yeah, yeah.
My goodness,
Yeah.
That's quite a
variety.
stretch.
It makes it a little difficult, only because you feel like you never want to leave anyone out when you're talking, and so I try very hard not to say in Bloomington this, in Bloomington that, although 11 of the 18 precincts are in Bloomington.
Majority,
but we can't forget
but
about
still
the others.
being different
So,
cities, some of the interests or concerns are slightly
Absolutely.
different too,
Absolutely.
which trying to keep track of
Yeah.
all that has to be hilarious to say the least.
It's a challenge, but we're doing it.
Good.
Hey, Barb, we got to first of all start out, let's find out a little bit about you.
Okay.
This is your first time running for the legislature?
It is.
Okay.
Yes.
Give us a little bit of your background.
Randy, my husband, and I moved here to Bloomington 12 years ago.
Okay.
I'm not a native Minnesotan, although it is rather amusing.
It grows on you. So.
I'll tell you a funny story. We lived in the Netherlands before we moved here.
Okay.
And in the American community there, I would, on occasion, say, "Oh yeah, sure." And somebody asked me one day if I was indeed from Minnesota, and I had never been here. So whether that was a premonition or not, we moved here 12 years ago. And I am an accountant by background. I have an MBA in accounting. I worked in income tax preparation for many years, and then now it's almost 5 years ago, I had always been involved in Republican politics on a national level. And then it became very clear to me that adage, all politics is local, started to really sink in, and I visited the Senate District, 49 Republicans one evening, and I always say there are no coincidences. Met Pat Mazeral that evening, who later asked me to join his campaign team. I became his campaign treasurer. I became treasurer for the Senate District. Then I became chair for the Senate District for 2 years. And then I began a candidate search for 49A and B.
And you ended up looking in the mirror, right?
You know, that's actually a story I use all the time, and that is literally, I looked in the mirror one morning after 5 months and said, well, I guess I'm your girl. So
Why not me?
why not me? I will say I had been asked for a few months by various people at the House, and I said, no, I think I'm more of an background organizer. And as I said, then one morning I said, I guess I'm it.
Okay.
So,
I can
identify with that
identify
very
with that,
easily.
yeah.
so I've heard from people.
Yeah,
now.
I know when they approached me, when I was originally approached to possibly run back in,
Yes.
it was 1999.
Yeah.
And I said, no way, no way I can
Yep.
do that. I can't. And then I thought about it a little bit. The more I thought, and I talked with a few people,
Yep.
and it came down to about the same thing. Why not
Why
me?
not me? Why not me?
Exactly.
Right.
I
Yep.
remember going from district chair to candidate.
So
just
you
like
also
did.
have
I
done
know
that.
the experience, right?
Yeah, yeah. It's actually, now that I look back on it and getting to that point, it was actually a very natural transition because you are already involved in the things that are going on politically, and you have the contacts that you've made, and so it did become something that was not at all as frightening as it may have sounded at one time. So here I am.
And just as a word of encouragement for everything it's worth, and for all the effort you're going to wind up putting into this, or have already put into it, it's a win-win situation. If you win, the benefits are obvious. If you don't win, you still benefit from it. It's an experience that you will never forget, that you will always, let's say, cherish in a sense. It makes you grow so much.
That the last conversation Randy and I had when we came to this decision, and I'm saying we because it's a team sport when one of you decides to run.
The whole family gets involved in a campaign.
And we sat down with Mike and Terry Jacobson. Terry Jacobson ran for this seat 2 years ago, and Terry said exactly what you did. She said, win or lose, it will be the most exhilarating experience of your life.
And it will be definitely a benefit you will take with you as you move on.
I think so.
My sore feet, I think, were worth it.
That's what I hear. Get a few pair of comfortable shoes.
Yes,
Yes,
right. You
yes.
gotta get comfortable shoes.
Yep.
And out in
some
your
cool
area,
clothing.
you gotta go a ways between houses too, don't you?
Yes, I do. And there are some of those wonderful steep driveways.
I can imagine.
Yeah, yeah.
And you just can't, you can't jump over them. You have to walk down
No,
and walk back.
no.
And get something that's cool to wear,
Yes.
because you get those hot days
Yeah, they're
during the
coming.
summer, especially on the weekends, and they're hot and humid.
Yeah.
And you're out there going door to door, knocking on doors, and the sweat is just pouring out. I know you're probably going to run the other way and say, I'm not going to do this.
I came here, why?
The sweat is pouring from your brow, and you got this wringing wet Kleenex in your hand
Yes.
that you're wiping your brow with just before
Yeah.
you knock the door, so you don't look too drenched. And,
Yeah.
but
Okay, Mark, let's cut the gloom here.
we'll scare her away from the campaign. But it's a great experience. So a lot of great people.
What in your opinion, are the chief issues in your area?
Well, given the fact that my background is accounting, of course I come by statistics and taxes naturally. I realize that not everyone is always that concerned about our tax rates, but I do think that as you look at what's been happening here the last few years, there's just been this progression, this increase, the increase in property taxes, which was not supposed to happen, and we're now seeing the highest property tax rates in Minnesota history. We are seeing a spending increase that is the highest in Minnesota state history, anywhere between 10 and 12%, depending upon who's measuring.
Not to mention the recent increase in bonding and everything else.
Absolutely.
Got to be covered somehow.
And so I do think that spending, taxes, those two together, are something that people are concerned about. They are certainly having we are already seeing negative impact on our business climate as a result of what's happening. So I think that those are huge. That then leads into the economy and jobs. And I have my thoughts on that we'll probably get into. And then Minnesota being what it is, education is always paramount, because without an educated workforce, a skilled labor force, we will be nothing, and we need to do the best that we can for our children as well. And I don't think, quite frankly, we talk about the wonderful education system in Minnesota, and I think it has been. And I think we do have some wonderful teachers in the state, but our statistics at this point, again, are not bearing out that we are serving our children well.
When you have 49% graduation,
Yes.
graduation testing, standards, or
Yes.
passing,
Yes.
49% of the kids passing the graduation test.
Yeah.
Something's wrong.
Something,
And these tests really are, many of them are actually on like a 4th or 5th grade level.
yes.
Most of the
Yes.
questions are 4th or 5th grade, and half of the
Yeah.
kids in some places
Yeah.
can't pass them.
Well, and last year, the legislature chose to lower the standards, the competency standards for educators, as well as getting rid of the graduation
Standards, yes.
requirements for our graduates. And so it is amusing to hear then in the news that graduation rates have improved. Well, it doesn't take much to figure out why they've improved.
Yeah.
And again, I think
But
we are not
what's the quality
serving-
of the graduates
right.
that we're sending out there? That's the question.
We are not serving our children well.
We have graduates, but you hear from the business community, from
Yes.
manufacturers, these kids go out there and they can't read
Right.
to a reasonable level. They can't
Yeah.
do basic math. They can't do
Right.
fractions and decimals and, the things
Yeah.
that industry requires. Well, what are we teaching these kids then?
Right. Well, and to add to that, those children or youngsters that are college bound, they are finding today 20 to 40% of them when they start Minnesota higher education. The first courses they have to take are remedial courses.
Things they
So
should have had in
again,
high
we're not serving our children well.
The
So
DFL has one simple solution: throw more money at it, and then of course that gets gobbled up by the teachers union.
yeah.
I just heard somebody describing a session of a Richfield Education board committee,
Yeah.
and what they were doing was they had a whole bunch of teachers in the room, and what they wanted is they wanted the limits on reserves to be cut so that there'd be more money for the teachers. That's all they were concerned about. They
Yeah.
weren't thinking about whether it's a good idea to have a reserve or how big that should be. All they were concerned about was getting some more money. And
Yeah.
that's a bad place to start.
Yeah, well, I
no.
remember when I was a candidate and I got one of the candidate questionnaires from Education Minnesota.
Yes.
And I looked through the questionnaire and for all intents and purposes, they were saying, we want more money, we want to work less hours, and we want to take less responsibility.
Right.
Will you back that?
That's
And I'm
right.
sitting this kind of, I can't say I'm going to
No,
back this, and
no.
then I can't be honest on this thing
Right.
and sleep at night.
Well,
I couldn't. So I
yeah.
mean, I didn't even send it back. I said, "There's no way. If that's the case, I don't want their endorsement."
Well, and we're seeing, if you take a look at what some of the charter schools in Minneapolis are doing, they are operating at much less cost per pupil and are getting tremendous results. So I think
Parochial and
that,
private schools have been doing this for years.
yes, and so I think that absolutely supports what you were saying,
Yes.
that it's not necessarily a matter of throwing money
No.
at the problem.
Some of the argument that they make for the public schools in this case is that, well, a lot of these private schools and charter schools don't have problem students and special needs students.
And that-
But that, yes, that is a bit of a factor. Granted, we'll give them that, but that's not
Yeah.
an excuse when you're taking into account that that is really a small portion of the whole overall
Right.
picture.
One of the things I've noticed in recent years is that the number of students who are labeled special
Yes.
is increasing exponentially.
Yes.
And this seems, I think, may well be related to the fact that if they've got more special needs students, they get more funding.
Right.
That's all they're thinking of.
Right, there's a special situation, they
There-
get extra
there
funding.
is
And
truth to that.
And,
There is truth to that.
When they get the extra money, of course, it goes to boost the salaries, and
Right.
none of it really gets spent on what they're supposed to be doing.
Well, as I say, I think we're not serving our children
No, we
well
aren't.
and don't have their best interests at heart. That's certainly how I see it. So that's an area of interest for me. I am a proponent of school choice. I am a proponent of allowing for more charter schools. and
vouchers or something on this order.
Absolutely.
And not necessarily
Absolutely.
vouchers, but something that gives parents more of an option without having to
Yes.
pay for their own child's education, let's say at a private school, and turn around and still have to pay full amount to
Right.
public schools.
Well, what you've seen in the last 2 years is that this particular legislature as well has really turned from local control to creating what we're calling a state board
Right.
of education. And I would be a huge proponent of changing that. I think local is the way we ought to be going with our schools. And there is not a one-size-fits-all that should be mandated by the states.
Feel that way too.
I think they do too, and I have to say I have started having, which you are both familiar with, meet and greets with groups of citizens. And the beauty of doing that sort of thing is when you can sit in a group and talk, much like we three are doing here, they're actually quite surprised. They agree, as you just said, but they're surprised at some of the things that have come down the pike and are not aware of
One of the
what's
things
happening.
I like to beat the drum on is I think they did a terrible job teaching history.
Yeah.
I was watching a program and somebody was asking a college student who was president during World War II, and she looks up and says, George Washington?
Yeah.
When you
Well,
get
most
an
of them
answer
don't even
like
know
that,
what World War II is.
I know.
I remember one of my memories was my ex-stepdaughter. I asked her who won the Revolutionary War. And she had to think about it for a while, and then kind of, we did? I said, well, I hope so, who won the Civil War?
Right.
She didn't have a clue. I mean, she could have said we did, and she would have been right no matter what.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, they did just a terrible job, and of course, when they come to trying to make decisions, as to what's good for the country,
Yeah.
they got no background. It would help enormously if people had some idea what happened in the past.
Well,
Well,
what is that old adage?
Yes,
In
yeah.
order to move forward, you have to learn
Yeah,
from the
yeah.
past.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, no, I couldn't agree with you more. So, yeah, fiscal, as I say, taxes, jobs, education. MNsure, of course, is just hanging out there.
What are you hearing about the whole MNsure, local Obamacare issue?
Well, I mean, certainly to start with, it's really unfortunate both on the national and the state level. In Minnesota, for example, 9% of Minnesotans were uninsured. So we had a system that many people would say was one of the best in the country, and it was thrown out. Of those 9% that were uninsured, they were able to get medical coverage. There were the MNCAN was there at the time, MCHA was there. So really no one was left without health care. Now we have what the latest I heard today, 280,000 Minnesotans have lost their health care coverage. Their choices are limited. Many have lost their doctors, the doctors that they preferred to go to.
They're paying more money for actually worse insurance in some many
Their
cases.
deductibles have increased, and taxes are expected to go up on those policies next year. And quite frankly, I think one of the most egregious things that came out of this session is the fact that the rates for 2015 will not be released until, wait for it, November 14th. 10
I wonder
days
why they're gonna
after
wait
the
that-
election.
yeah, right.
Yeah. And I will say that many legislators on the Republican side tried to pass an amendment to get those rates released early. Unsuccessfully, they were blocked. And I think that's just unconscionable. I mean,
Yes, it is.
and just to add, the insurance companies know the rates, have the rates ready in summer. So,
They know what they're going to do.
And I don't, and I
yeah.
don't think the website's working yet either.
Well,
I mean,
that's-
it's working barely, but there's
Yes.
still big problems with it.
well, I think that's another big
I mean,
problem with
this
this
is the
whole
Minnesota
thing.
site, not the
Yes,
national site, which is
yes.
another issue that
I mean, they had the
was out of our
security
purview.
breach right when it started, and there are many of us that are not convinced that the security of it is what it should be. So, I mean, I just think all the way around, this is
The whole
not
th-
really
the
the
whole thing
way
was botched.
the way
Yeah,
we want to
it
go.
was
So,
botched.
yeah,
And
yeah,
it's systemic because government simply doesn't do certain things well.
no,
In fact, government
It doesn't do anything well, in all honesty.
Having served in the military, I remember one major telling me, you don't want the government running anything. All you have to do is look around here and see how the government
Right.
runs the Army.
yeah.
And you want to keep it as small as possible, and I think I have to agree
Yeah.
with them.
Well, now I'm a military brat,
Mm-hmm.
married to Air Force, so maybe Air Force was a little different. I'm kidding.
Well, yeah,
I'm kidding,
I usually just told people, okay, yeah, do you really want the same the same government that brought you, was it $300 toilet seats,
Yeah,
$250 hammers,
Yeah.
and ashtrays for airplanes that couldn't be, in airplanes where you couldn't
Right.
smoke? Is this really the same organization you want running your health care?
Exactly.
Well, I think you can look right now at what's happening within the VA system. And the VA system is really,
That's scary.
is nationalized health care, if you will.
Exactly. What's been
So,
nationalized
Well,
from
the
the
VA
beginning.
operates on
Yes.
a, government, what the government gives them
Absolutely.
to run on.
Absolutely.
And,
Yeah, you're not concerned about making a profit. You're not concerned about serving your
Right.
customers because you're going to get paid no matter what.
that's right.
And
Yeah.
when you have that kind of a situation, people slough off.
Yeah, yeah.
They know they can get away with stuff. and-
well, the other issue is if you don't give it the money, they can't provide the services. Even, I'll say the VA wants to do a good job,
Oh, there's no question.
but
Yeah.
if you don't have the money, you just can't do it.
Yeah.
It's not there. And in other countries where they've had nationalized health care, even
Yes.
England, I remember way back when Clintons were trying to get their health care system through.
Yeah.
I heard an interview with the head of the British system, and he said literally, it's, if we have, budgeted for 300 people getting kidney dialysis, that's fine. When the 301st person comes along, it's, well, go home and die, sorry, nothing, we can't do anything for you.
Yeah.
Well,
It's those
when
endless,
the money's gone, the
it's
health
the
care's gone.
endless waiting times. And I mean, as I said, I think I indicated we were living overseas before we moved here.
Right.
So we were observers of both the Dutch and the German health system, and there are aspects of it that are wonderful, and yet aspects that you think, is this really what the best thing is for our country? I think we can do better, and I think we should do better for our
I have
citizens.
an anecdote. Some years ago, I heard a woman speaking who had taken a trip to Northern Ireland, and she had some experience with the healthcare system in Great Britain and
Yeah.
the United Kingdom, and she said she told her friends, "If I get sick, you put me in a hospital bed and you ship me back home."
Yeah, yeah,
Because I just don't want any part of this healthcare system.
Right, yeah.
And some of the stuff I've been hearing lately has been just horrific. I've seen stuff on the
Yeah,
internet where people have died because the nurse didn't bother to
Right.
check. And
Well, it's just this idea that government knows best, and I think that's really
yes,
not the way we want to go. And that isn't to say that there isn't a role for government, but I think we need to look at smarter.
I'm sorry, that's not
Government.
what this country
So-
was
Yeah.
founded
No,
on.
no,
It's
no.
not the
Yeah.
principles this country was founded on. We grew and became a great nation on those original founding principles,
Yes.
and now they want to change the whole playbook and into something that's been, like Europe in a sense. Of course, everyone said, "Oh, Europe," Well, how many times have we had to go bail out Europe, both militarily, financially, and just about any other way you can imagine?
Yeah,
I'm sorry. Our way worked quite fine for
Yeah.
centuries.
yeah.
yes, it did.
Well, and I think, again, we all should have a voice in this, and that's one of the,
Exactly.
that is actually also one of the reasons why I started this race, because I said we need to be here for all Minnesotans, and right now we have one voice in our legislature, and so.
Yeah, that's correct,
Yeah.
we do.
What other issues do you hear are kind of real high concern out there?
Well, as I say, I think jobs are a problem. We have double-digit unemployment among
Right.
our minorities, among our military veterans,
Yeah, and that's shameful.
our millennials. That, I think, is a huge issue. I think it's one of the reasons why we need to be concerned about creating a better business climate, lowering those corporate taxes. We are number 3 in the nation at this point. Small businesses are paying almost 10%. Corporations are at 9.8, I believe. We
And we got Wisconsin right next door if
Yes.
somebody doesn't like it.
Yes.
Wisconsin's
We have
really
lost-
cleaned house.
Yes.
And we have lost businesses.
Mm-hmm.
This idea of having raised taxes $2.1 billion, and now what I would say masquerading as tax cutters,
Yeah.
which this
Exactly. Well,
legislature
now that we've
is
taken your
not.
money away, we'll give you back part of it and say we're good
In the
guys.
meantime, we lost businesses, and people, vote with their feet.
Yes,
So,
they do.
And the money they've taken in taxes is
Yeah.
literally taken
Yeah.
right out of
Yeah.
the economy.
Yeah.
It
And we-
is
Exactly
money that
right.
cannot
Yeah.
be spent on the
Right.
economy.
And then
And
we
we
get
have
spent
a
on
wonder-
government bureaucrats who frankly don't have a real incentive to do a good job or to try very hard. They do as much as they have to do in order
Yeah.
to
The
keep the wolf from the door, and that's
The
it.
incentive to spend is political, not
Exactly.
actually need and not economic. It's literally political or where the decisions to spend
Well,
are
we've
made.
always been a state of innovation and entrepreneurship, and
Oh, you
so
mean we're
I
actually not
would-
trying to be little California?
Yeah, I would hate to see us lose that edge that we had at
Yeah,
one point.
that would be a
So,
shame.
Yes, yeah.
And I think
So-
if we keep on going the way we are, we will lose that edge.
Well, we need to make a change
We
November
need to def-
4th.
We gotta work
Yeah,
hard and
yeah.
try to do the best we
Yeah.
can on that.
In the legislature, we're looking at 7 seats. And this area is looked upon as one of those seats that can be flipped, so that's
so you
why
want to
I'm
flip it,
here.
don't you?
Yes, yes.
Well, we're getting pretty close to the end,
Yeah.
Barb. I really enjoyed this conversation, and I really am hoping that you win.
Thank you. Thanks so
and
much.
I think the people of your district's going to do very well if they elect
Thank you. I appreciate it. I'll look to the 2 of you to help me door knock.
All right, we just might do that. And with that, we'll close. We'll see you next time.